epic road trip through Ireland without ever stepping foot on a plane? And is it actually worth the time, the money and the mental toll?
With the ongoing Middle East conflict causing a massive jet fuel crisis, skyrocketing flight fares and unexpected flight cancellations, long-haul flying has never felt more stressful or expensive.
So if you're keen to find out if a trip over the Irish Sea to the Emerald Isle via ferry is actually a viable alternative, then come along for the ride with us in this video. But before we dive into the wet and windy wild west of Ireland, a quick disclaimer.
You might notice we look a little different in the footage we're about to show you. That's because this trip actually took place 2 years ago. We've had 4 different haircuts between us since then, and it took us this long to recover from the ferry ride.
But all the data on costs, carbon and whether this trip is actually viable is completely up to date.
In our last travel video, we visited a hidden Scottish island. Link below. This time we're exploring Ireland's Wild Atlantic Way, a legendary 1,600-mile coastal driving route stretching from the north of County Donegal down the west coast to the southern tip of County Cork that's studded with rugged and breathtaking scenery, sometimes atrocious, mostly atmospheric, and occasionally gorgeous weather. White sand beaches, ruins and waterfalls, cultural landmarks and rich in history and heritage. Join us for a 4-wheeled adventure along Ireland's legendary Wild Atlantic Way.
Except we live on the East Coast, and if you're not hot on your UK geography, that means we started this trip on hard mode. So before we even saw the Emerald Isle, we had to drive 6 hours straight across England and Wales just to reach the ferry at Holyhead. Because of that, we had to make a tactical decision. We couldn't do the full route. We're focusing on the spectacular stretch from the Connemara National Park down to Kinsale.
Hard mode didn't stop at the port. We camped our first night in Holyhead just as an amber weather warning storm hit. Our brand new tent survived, but our stomachs barely did on the 3.5-hour nauseating ferry crossing to Dublin.
First top tip, if you're doing this route, do not pass up the opportunity to hit the ferry duty-free for some stomach-settling whiskey. You'll need it.
Now, our main goal was the rugged west coast. But you can't bypass Dublin, of course. It's a UNESCO city of literature, but we had a much more urgent appointment with Ireland's finest export, the Guinness Storehouse.
This is almost always sold out, so you must pre-book. Is it worth the hype? Absolutely. It's a complete feast for the senses, even if I looked a little bit underwhelmed by the flashy light shows. Plus, we learned a pint of Guinness is actually high in antioxidant properties and polyphenols, which may support gut health and immunity.
That's good for you. We topped it off with full-sized pints at their rooftop bar, hit the infamous Temple Bar area for live music, and grabbed pizza at a spot called Pie, which we can honestly say is some of the best pizza we have ever had.
But the wilderness was calling us westward. As soon as we got out the congested city, we were reminded why this often rainy part of the world is nicknamed the Emerald Isle. Expansive rolling seas of green hills and luscious fields, bringing a sense of calm and reflection. But despite being far from a city, it wasn't long before we were stuck in standstill again. Slight traffic jam at the moment whilst we let all the cows pass. And they're all having a bit of a munch in the hedge first, so could be here sometime.
Get on with it. Having navigated some classic Irish cattle traffic, we stumbled upon a total hidden gem, Moore Hall in County Mayo. It was burned down in 1923 during the Civil War and has been completely reclaimed by nature and nesting bats. It's creepy, beautiful and completely free to explore.
To the Lidbrook coffee shop.
Where there's only tea available today.
Oh, I was just going to ask for a cappuccino.
No.
But served by a very handsome man.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Where's he gone? Has he gone to go and get them?
Piss. Okay, oh dear. wasn't expecting that.
After Ash was schooled by the kids' trim trail, we were back on the road, following the distinctive Wild Atlantic road signs, and flat farmland soon gave way to the scenic mountains, heath and grasslands of Connemara National Park in Galway. We pitched up at Renville Beachview campsite for 2 nights. When people think of Ireland, they don't usually picture tropical-looking white sand beaches, but just look at this.
What a camp spot. Happy with that, Ash?
I'll do, I suppose. While Phoebes braved the freezing Atlantic for some cold water therapy, well done, I foraged for dinner and lit a barbecue under a pink sunset on the beach. Absolute perfection. The next day was a major tourist hotspot, Kylemore Abbey, a waterside Gothic Benedictine nunnery set in 1,000 acres of mountainside, a haven of history and beauty and home to some very special Cune pigs, as well as Ireland's largest walled garden. But not all the flowers are meant to be here, or at least not on this scale. These rhododendron were introduced to Ireland and the UK by the Victorians. They might look pretty, but they are an invasive species that spread rapidly, dominate native ecosystems, and negatively impact biodiversity.
Find out more about how this project's going. I think that says it all.
Given up. What's the point? It's an endless task to keep them at bay, and we wondered whether the Kylemore Fire Brigade couldn't have lent a hand, seeing as they weren't overly busy.
One story claims that the only fire they ever had to contend with was when their own engine caught fire.
Here we made a controversial decision. After letting off some steam, we completely bypassed the world-famous cliffs of Moher. Why? Torrential rain, endless queues of tour coaches and a massive parking fee. Instead, we followed the Wild Atlantic Way down to the bridges of Ross.
Whether or not you skip the expensive cliffs, the bridges of Ross offer jaw-dropping ocean-carved stone arches, wild Atlantic views, zero crowds, and makeshift free parking that our Toyota just about managed. Despite the wind, Phoebe decided it was too spectacular a view to pass up getting in some cliff-top headstands.
To save time, we took a quick car ferry from Killimmer to Tarbert towards the Dingle Peninsula.
Look, this bar's called Swanky. It's really not very
I
swanky.
think it's almost Guinness o'clock once we find a nice looking pub as well.
Yeah. Not whilst I'm driving. Never would I.
One's fine, isn't it?
I won't say anything.
What is the official?
Just to confirm, this was only the camera falling on a tight bend and there was definitely no drink driving. We bypassed Dingle itself due to time constraints of the holiday and instead drove the Ring of Kerry in County, yeah, you guessed it, Kerry. This film doesn't do it justice, but this was some of the most scenic driving either of us had ever experienced. And somehow the bad weather added to the beauty, giving a kind of mythical atmosphere.
My life's in your hands, Ash.
What?
It's very, no, don't do that. Very tight cliff top roads here. Beautiful views though.
We camped at another 5-star beachside site in Cahadaniel, complete with a local robin eyeing up our dinner. From here, we hope to catch a boat to the famous Skellig Michael, the Star Wars island.
But the Atlantic had other plans. The swell was too big and our trip was cancelled. Keep this in mind if you plan a trip here, always have a plan B because the Irish weather dictates the schedule. Our plan B? Killarney National Park. Now, although the national park isn't technically on the coastal route of the Atlantic Way, it's very close by and an essential detour. Covering 26,000 acres, Killarney is renowned for its stunning scenery, including lakes, mountains, forests, waterfalls, history, heritage, and of course, Guinness enjoyed from a rooftop bar with gorgeous vistas.
Just a 5-minute walk from the road through scenic mossy woodland, we made our way to Torque Waterfall. I hope I'm pronouncing all these right. Where I was inspired by the hanging vines to try a Tarzan swing.
And they take your weight? Spoiling the national park.
Vandal. Which went well. The waterfall is unsurprisingly best seen after heavy rain, which, let's say, isn't rare in Kerry. So finally, the past couple of days, wild weather paid off.
We finished our Irish leg by visiting family in the gorgeous market town of Clonakilty in County Cork to stay with my lovely cousins and enjoy some wide sandy beaches. Winner of the Best Town in Europe 2017 and popular with tourists, Cosmopolitan Clon, as it's locally known, is a market town full of charm, with colourful shop fronts, fantastic food and friendly pubs where on the right night you can bring along your fiddle or flute for a folk jam with the locals. From Clon to the finish line of Kinsale. Well, actually, it's technically the starting point, but turns out we unknowingly drove the whole route backwards. Kinsale is also in Cork, and like Clon, it's vibrant and colourful town with lots to see and do.
Before heading to our final campsite, we also made a brief stop at the seaside town of Cove. Known as the Titanic's last port of call in 1912 and home to one of the tallest buildings in Ireland, the Roman Catholic Cathedral Church of St Colman, which overlooks Cork Harbour. Mission accomplished, except we still had to get home without flying. And this is where the hard mode theme struck again.
Our journey back to the UK got off to a roaring start as we waited to board our ferry from Rosslare to Wales. This ferry was much smaller than the way here. One of the reasons being was that we were actually on the wrong boat than the one intended. I thought I had booked tickets to Fishguard, but we realised halfway through the sailing that we were actually heading to Pembroke. Luckily, a minor mistake, as these Welsh ferry ports are less than an hour's drive from one another, but just a reminder, do double check your sailing port when booking and when boarding.
We vacated the bar/cafe area to avoid a seasick child and instead stayed out on deck to watch puffins and islands passing by. We extended the romance of the road trip by camping a few more nights in Wales before heading back to the east of England. We made a stop at 19th century house and gardens of Sculpton Manor, now a museum and country park with woodland trails, a community-run tea room with excellent cake, beekeeping centre, sculptures, walled gardens, and yet more rhododendron trees.
Wow.
Sculpton offers a great blend of nature and history and makes for a morning or afternoon out if you're in the Pembrokeshire area.
We continued on to Cardigan Bay, and before long the wilderness was calling us back. So we hiked our way to the cliff tops of Munt, spelt M-W-N-T, which was of particular interest to us due to its known sightings of special sea life.
What are we doing, Phoebes?
Going dolphin watching, hunting.
Hunting? Oh my god!
Hunting for dolphins to watch
This is taking a turn.
through the foxglove forest.
Yeah, climb up the top of this hill. Up there. And see if we can see some dolphins. Or whales.
Oh, Wales. We're in Wales.
We are in Wales. That is correct. It's so tall. That's got to be the tallest foxgloves I've ever seen. Holy moly. Someone smells. Ant. Ant smells. Dolphin, Phoebes?
Actually did.
Hey!
Well, half of one, a fin.
We settled down at our remote eco campsite, Coidmore Camping, run by an acquaintance that I met at a permaculture course. This is wonderfully basic, apart from the luxury of hot water and the outdoor shower, and we almost had the field to ourselves.
Whilst based here and enjoying the local beaches, we also explored the nearby woodland and waterfall of Fioni. This spot is a bit of an off the beaten track and so peaceful it feels almost secretive. We had a little paddle in the freezing water, and on our way back, Ash found a nice little foraging spot.
After briefly reopening our mobile Live Free and Be coffee shop, bargain hot drinks at a few pence a pop, we are acutely aware that all good things come to an end.
Moving every few days makes a 10-day holiday feel like 2 months. We explored 2 countries, saw incredible wildlife and came home totally refreshed.
But now for the ultimate question. How did the costs stack up? And in a year where global fuel shocks mean airlines are slapping extra surcharges on economy tickets just to balance their books, staying closer to home and travelling slow is looking smarter than ever.
Let's look at the data. Thanks to our love of camping, most of our accommodation was just around £20 a night for today's prices. Our biggest outlay was the ferry itself, which for 2 adults return with a car currently costs a total of £240 if you don't mind travelling midweek and at unsociable hours, up to £450 for peak times. But it's also worth knowing there are often a kids go free promotion.
Coincidentally, our mileage to get to the Welsh ferry port and back from Suffolk was very similar to the total miles we drove whilst actually in Ireland, around 750 miles, costing approximately £120.
And finally, what about the carbon emissions? We were really surprised to find out afterwards that a ferry crossing in rough weather, which, let's face it, is most of the time with the Irish Sea, uses 50% more fuel than an easy breezy sail. Though this would still be significantly less than flying the same distance. Unsurprisingly, by far the most eco-friendly and budget-friendly option is as a ferry foot passenger on a rail and sail deal.
So with that information, we decided that our next overseas adventure should be entirely by public transport. And we wanted to see just how far-flung we could feasibly go for a 10-day holiday exclusively using trains and ferry. The video on this is currently in the making, but in the meantime, can you guess where we ended up? Here's a clue.
Otherwise, thanks for joining us on this adventure. We hope it helps with planning your own, and make sure you're subscribed to catch more videos of us learning how to live life to the fullest whilst being more gentle to the planet. How do you pronounce the cliffs of Moher or Moher in Ireland?